Still have a jacket. Good for you. All right.
Good.
Yeah.
No, you're not on.
That's right.
They put on my makeup before I came, Bobby.
No, of course it doesn't. It's almost set up for frustration, the way they have their website works.
I got a few things, but that's typical.
I don't think you're wrong on that. They are what they, the vectors are. They should. One would think, right? Should want to know that, right?
That's very nice.
Yeah, I like doing that. Yeah. I'd rather be engineering.
We don't have that much in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Oh, A-team versus
Do that.
Jack Garber doing this, come up to the garage, and I was heading back to town, and some boxes from the carpet, like, you guys didn't empty the cans outside. Oh, were we supposed to? Yeah, well, they said they had a full load, I'm like, well, somebody go back down and grab it.
All right, everybody, it's 7. Can we all please stand for the pledge?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did we get a chance to look over the bills? See their audit?
We reviewed the bills and find them okay to be paid.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. This is our public comment period. I know in the past I've allowed people to talk about the same issue several times. I'm going to ask that you wait to the end, after you have your initial public comment. If you want to comment again, wait to the end of the meeting. Our agenda is extremely thick tonight. So I'll open it up to public comments, but please direct them at the town board and not each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Lee King, 317 Snake Hill Road. The town should feel proud of itself for the way that it has conducted public involvement regarding the federal funding that's been made available through the Relief Act. And it has been now at least 4 different public meetings where the general public has had an opportunity to provide its input. And I think that it has been now a couple of months since it has been actively discussed by the board. And I would like to be on the record as requesting that that would become an agenda item in an upcoming town board meeting where the board would take into consideration a review process or come up with a formula by which that funding is to be used, and that it would be consistent with the spirit of that funding, which I think we would all agree that that was provided as a health-oriented funding, and that it should be something for the benefit of the general public. I would like the board to have that be a agenda item to come up with specifics as to how to determine that funding would be allocated and that it would be consistent with the provision and input that the general public has provided so far.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, Mr. Blair.
Gary, well, if you want to, good. I just want to reserve time if necessary, and pertinent to the noise, local law on the agenda. Not necessarily during whatever's going to be discussed, but as you requested at the end.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, that, briefing, thank you. That moves us to the clerk's minutes. We have the September minutes. If everybody's had an opportunity to review them, I entertain a motion to adopt them as written.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? All opposed? So moved. Our September 15th minutes as well.
So moved.
All in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Our September 21st minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Right.
All opposed? So moved. In our October 15th meeting, I'm going to take a motion. October 5th, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion.
One second.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for all that.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
These are the official town minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so what are the possible repercussions of Eric continuing to post in the advertiser his version of the minutes to be voted on at the next town board meeting?
I will confirm the officially adopted minutes are the official minutes for the town, and I will review your question and be able to report back to you on it.
We have correspondence from Charter. And we have a resignation of Mrs. Califa from the planning board. Those are our correspondence. Is there anyone who'd like to comment on our correspondence? I thank Sue for her service, and she'll be sorely missed. That moves us to our liaison reports. Do we have anyone here from the planning board?
Tom will be here at 10:30. I'm here, but I wasn't prepared to.
You're on.
Okay. Good evening.
We'll move on to the zoning board. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
You can look at it. Anyone from the zoning board?
Is there anybody behind you?
That's all right. Something snack.
We just had a, one almost case where we were going, there was a lot of record, and we have a, public hearing coming up for a swimming pool. I think Tracy Drive, it's actually on 3 streets. Tracy, Cherokee, and Algonquin Beach. There really hasn't been that much activity.
Well, it's wonder we'll get even slower, hopefully. We have our fire company reports. Thank you.
I do have the report for the month of August, I was missing last month. We had 15 EMS calls, 15 fire, 30 for the month. One did not respond. Year to date, 222 calls, with 2 missed calls for the year. I do have the numbers for last month. I don't have a written report because Dave's father went in the hospital tonight or this afternoon. So we had 22 EMS and 7 fire for a total of 29.
Thank you. Anyone from the library?
Library's doing really great. The roof looks fantastic. We made it before tonight's storm, which is great. Last month, programming was very successful. This month, we're focusing on the Halloween theme and the cold weather that's coming up. So we have 2 different streaming systems now. We have the Hoopla that we've had in the past, and we now also have Kanopi. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Kanopi covers loads and loads of movies. It also includes the Great Book series, if anybody wanted to take those out. We have a new display case and a battery recycling container that's now being put out front. And we are also a passport acceptance agency, which basically means we can help people fill out their passport applications. So that's what's new at the library.
Now, when you say help them fill out the application, they still have to go and get the passport as well, right?
So we don't do the pictures, but yeah, so we don't, we help them fill out the paperwork for it and then, ship it off, sometime do it.
Did you say streaming video,
Yes.
right? I just got an email on that today. What is that about? I didn't understand what that meant.
Okay, so there's 2 different systems. One is the Hoopla, which
That's
is
okay.
the one that we've had in the past, but the new one is the Kanopi.
Okay, seriously.
And the Kanopi, I'll be honest, I haven't used it yet, so I can't give it details, but it's supposed to be super easy. And you can, as a patron, you take up to 5 different movies, videos, lesson books, whatever it is that you're interested in, out for a month.
And that's not physically, like streaming?
It's a streaming system.
That's cool.
So, like I said, not expert on it, but it is pretty neat that whatever device you have at home, you can do that. And I think it's gonna be super fun in the wintertime when it's miserable out. And we can call ahead and say, hey, I'd like this.
So the days of going and picking up DVDs are probably going the way of the dinosaurs, so to say.
I think we'll always have physical DVDs available because we are a library. We like to have things in our hands. But it is nice to have both options.
Thank you. Tiffany?
Halloween parade is the 30th of October, at 11:30. It'll start here and go down Main Street. We've always kind of finished it at the VFW. It's gonna extend a little bit more to the elementary school because PTA is doing a trunk or treat there. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone from the CAC? Okay, this is discussion items. We have a recommendation from the planning board on the Schuhart PDD. They gave it a favorable recommendation. We all have that in our packet. We want to discuss it.
Would you like us to make a presentation or?
Sure.
So, to make this quick, matter of fact, we'll just hold this. So in essence, this is the same map that we have been looking at for the last several months. And working with this board and also the planning board, one big discussion that had come up is the wetland crossings that we have out here. So last month, we met with, I think, 4 different people from DEC and 1 gentleman from the Army Corps of Engineers. And a few town board members and planning board members were present as well. I thought the meeting went very well. Today we met out there with our wetland biologist who does test pits out here as directed by DEC and the Army Corps, just to try to find out where we can mitigate any wetland disturbance. So what you see here in this area, where we're crossing the blue shade, is a wetland disturbance. We've got about 0.13 acres of wetland disturbance. We need to mitigate and recreate the same amount. So that was the idea of digging test pits today, find out where the soils are, the proper drainage and things of that nature. So for the most part, that's the primary update we have, but I felt it was a very positive meeting with DEC and the Army Corps. And I don't see it being an issue. Is it a permitting process and maybe a 6-month time frame? The answer is probably yes on that, but it was a very positive meeting working with them out there. So, and aside from that, we did stake out some property lines. Fred Metzger is a licensed land surveyor for the project, and Fred staked out a property line between this parcel here. I think, again, a few board members had asked about that, just to to get an idea as to where the tree line was, where our building sat with respect to that. So that was really the primary updates that we have for the board.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I guess we'll go back to the planning board. Did you have enough time?
Sure. So I guess I'm just to give you an overview, right? I think the Oslin and Langley is still going on with the lawyer. There was a couple questions. Our lawyer had wrote them back, and so that's kind of in the middle of discussion. For the Rensselaer Plateau, they did receive their DEC letter saying that the bridges were okay. So there was one other question asked about their taxes, and so they have to come back one more time. Tom and I, Tom had discussed it would only be like a temporary, it's not a full length forever. They have to come back over so many years for the permit. So most likely next month it'll be voted on and approved. And then Mike Castle did not show up, even though there have been repeated calls for him to come down and see if he had his drawings yet for us to review.
Thank you.
Sorry, Laura, what was the question about the tax? I don't know, what does that mean?
I think there was just some question as far as like what was brought up is I said something along the lines that I think that if they're going to do anything, right, the Rensselaer Plateau, they should be at the same responsibility as the rest of the taxpayers and people who live in the town. So if I'm going to put a shed on and it's going to encroach or possibly could encroach, they should have to come up front to us and have a permit. And then someone just asked, I don't remember how the question was worded, but
I had asked the original SUP, they had stated they were gonna pay full taxes on the parcel, which had been paying on for 40 years on a $350,000 value. And I wanted to see the report on what they had paid since they got their SUP. So their statement was that they would pay full assessment, full taxes. And we had some questions as to the truth of that.
My only concern with me for the Rensselaer Plateau is I think what they're doing is great. I just, they just seem to be popping up little things that they do that, they talk to the neighbors and it's okay because they have full community support. I can talk to my neighbors too, but there's still laws that have to be, met, whether you're a non-for-profit or for-profit or a resident of the town. And I just feel like they think they don't have to do the same things that the rest of us have to do.
If my memory serves me right, it was a tax rate that was shortly after it was turned over, was considerably reduced.
They were gonna come back with the actual amounts they had paid and
Yeah.
the taxes.
Andy, what authority does the planning board have to do with taxes?
It's generally not a planning board issue, it's a town issue through the assessor's office. Are they entitled to that information? Sure, it's public information.
It wasn't us setting a tax rate, it was a statement when they originally got their SUP granted,
Right.
was that part of that was gonna be full taxes paid. And, as this is a review, wanted to see if that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That brings us to standards and decorum resolution. Eric, you brought this one forward?
We've talked about this last year, and we talked about it, and we made some edits to it, and I made some edits to it, and I don't know, maybe I forgot about it, but I think it's time to bring it up and listen to what the public has to say about it. We've had our time to talk about it and tweak the resolution, and it's something I think we should take it to the next level, which is the public hearing. So I'll make a motion that we hold a public hearing next month on that draft resolution.
I have a second.
You don't need a second. Right?
So what I would advise the board is, under the New York Town Law, it's the town board that establishes the rules and procedure for its meetings. If you choose to hold a public hearing, you can, but in terms of establishing procedural rules or rules of decorum, that's simply a town board issue.
Right, but procedure, when a motion, when a resolution is brought to the board and considered procedurally, it only takes one vote to go for a public hearing, and that's what I'm proposing. Because that's what we did a couple months ago with the abandoned buildings law. It was I made one motion, and we talked about how it was just a motion. Give you a second.
So we'll clarify on that. That would have been in the form of introductory local law. And the way the municipal home rule law works is one member will introduce the law and then a public hearing is set. You're correct on that. This isn't technically in the form of a local law. And generally, you can, I don't know that that's advisable, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But this is generally the form of a resolution. And some towns have done exactly what you would propose, is to establish the meeting procedure and decorum guidelines. It is generally done through a resolution, not a local law. Once a local law is in place, the only way to amend it is through another local law process. That can be procedurally cumbersome, okay? If the board is intent on moving forward with these, certainly my advice would be it is in the form of a resolution. And generally, resolutions are not subject to public hearings. They are subject to one person introducing and then someone seconding, and then there's a roll call vote.
Okay, so if we don't get a second, can you and I work to put this in the form of a local law?
That's at the discretion of the board.
Why is this different from the abandoned buildings law?
Well, I don't know that there was any discussion, not to my knowledge, discussion about that before. I thought that had always been in the form of a local law. That's what you had forwarded to me. I just kind of reworked it a little bit to get in different local law shape. If you want to put this in the form of a local law and the board directs me to do that, we'll do that. And then it can be introduced and be subject to a public hearing. But again, once there's a local law in place, the only way to amend that is to go back through the local law process. And that's available to the board, but it is a little bit more procedurally cumbersome to do that.
Well, then I just want to understand, because maybe I'm confused. Because when you and I talked about the abandoned buildings law, I talked to you about that beforehand. I said, what's the process? And you said, one person, it's already under consideration. One person puts it up, the motion, and it goes to public hearing.
Correct.
So what's changed from that to this?
Because this is not in the form of a local
So
law.
did you put the other one in the form of local law for me?
You did.
I did. Oh, wow.
I had provided, if you recall, last year, I think it was, you had asked representatives from the town of Brunswick to come in and describe their abandoned buildings registry and vacant property maintenance requirements. And the assessor came over, and I came over.
Sure, I invited you.
And we appreciate that. And we went through that and provided a copy of Brunswick's local law. It was my understanding you used that as a basis to put, okay, then I'm mistaken, but what you had provided to me was in the form of a local law. It wasn't on the right Department of State forms.
Sure.
That's what I did. And I, not to say anything, cleaned it up a little bit, put it in a different form. And again, if you would like these rules for procedure and decorum put into the form of a local law, that can be done. And then procedurally, you're correct, under the municipal home rule law, one member of the board introduces the law. That's all that's required, and then a public hearing will be set. So if you want this in the form of a local law, that can be done. Like simply, as I said earlier, these generally are not done through a local law process to the extent they're done at all. I'm not aware of other Rensselaer County communities that have, there are in other parts of the state. Generally done through a resolution doesn't mean it cannot be done through a local law. So if you'd like it in the form of a local law, we can do that and introduce it.
Let me ask you, is it your intent to go forward as a local law for next month's meeting?
My intent is to have a public hearing
But, you know, your intent is to change to a local law for a public hearing.
at some point.
So really, what you just want is a public hearing, right? If
Well,
I
that's the
second the
next step.
motion and we have a public hearing, it doesn't have to be put into a local law.
No, the town still votes on whether or not it goes to a local law.
Okay, all right, well, I'll make,
Okay, so if we're gonna discuss this, then like, when it came up last July, our former attorney, Jack Casey, said to really think about this because town governments operate on the open meetings law. And this was more following Robert's Rules law. So the only thing that got changed from last year to this year is that he took out the parliamentarian paragraph. Otherwise, it mirrors that. So again, would it be detrimental to operate under more of this Robert Rules, which is very cumbersome compared to open meetings?
The New York town law provides that it's the town board that sets the rules for its procedure on how. There are no set rules under the New York town law. The section dealing with the power of the board includes the ability to set the procedure under which the board will operate. So there's no prohibition on it. They're not widely in place, but they are. Okay. One of the things to consider too, and I just briefly looked at it this afternoon, I've not done extensive research on this, is that you do have to be careful about particularly the rules of decorum, because it potentially raises free speech rights in an open public meeting. There has been litigation about challenging these as being unconstitutional and violating constitutionally protected free speech rights. This is not on procedural rules, it's basically on decorum rules. Okay? And that's, if this does move forward, we should drill down on those issues just to make sure, but that there's nothing to prohibit the board from holding a public hearing.
There's no pride of ownership on this because this is a copy and paste job from five recent decorum laws throughout the state.
Yeah.
So I didn't make this up. I used five different ones and made it make sense. So
Understood.
these are existing every day.
Yeah.
Well, if the intent is to have a public hearing, I'm not supposed to have a public hearing. What's it
So
on the
there's-
board?
I don't, I'm not gonna.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll make a motion that we hold a public hearing on our next town board meeting.
Is the next process that it goes through, that's it, or does it have to go to a vote to put it up for a public hearing?
It's a little unusual because with a local law, there's no vote.
Right.
There's generally
There
not
shouldn't even
public
be a
hearings on
second.
resolutions, so you're in a little bit of procedural.
Well, then I guess the question is, I don't really want to, I'll sit here and debate this professionally all day long, but we can either go as is, or we can change it to a local law and put this in next month and officially do that. It's up to you.
You can hold a public hearing on your proposed resolution, of
Right.
course, you can take public input on it. Ultimately, is it legally required? No. The
I-
resolution is entirely the board's prerogative.
I'm perfectly happy having the public comment on this.
You can certainly put a public hearing notice together identifying this as a proposed resolution pertaining to the town board procedural rules and rules of decorum.
I have a motion.
Well, do we vote?
Is there a second?
You're the second.
Oh, all right, so we have a second to, all in favor?
Yes.
No.
No, no, I
All opposed?
Okay, do a roll call then, I guess.
Councilwoman Butler,
No,
Councilman Haas,
No.
Councilman Van Slyke.
No.
Supervisor Hammond,
Yes.
Councilman Oliver.
Yes. So we can't even have a public hearing on this resolution. So if I go back to you and we turn this into a local law, I can make the motion and it goes to a public hearing. Is that my
Yes,
understanding?
you can introduce your proposal.
As a public hearing. So I'll work with you over the next month on that. Thank you.
Okay, our next one is off to you, Eric. It's on, noise ordinance.
So same thing, based on a lot of different issues we've had throughout the town, throughout the years, noise ordinance is a problem. Again, I looked up, with the help of the Association of Towns, recent law regarding noise control. These were in 4 different towns in New York State. I think I think all of them were 2021. And the point is here to try to set standards so that we'll hopefully set standards for the people who feel that the noise is a problem, right? Set standards that'll help our code enforcement officer. Set standards that will hopefully help deter folks who are causing these problems and hopefully just show that we actually have a plan in place. Right now, the current process is we get a noise complaint, we call the state police do nothing, and we just move on. And I don't think that's good enough. And I think we need to come up with a comprehensive plan that protects the neighbors, that protects the person who's making the noise, potentially, protects the code enforcement officer, and protects the board. And at the end of the day, these are simple quality of life issues, and we should be able to be more objective and less subjective. So I sent this to the board a week or so ago, and I don't know if we just talk about it now, and you guys can give me your thoughts, things that are good, things that are bad, things that you want improved, and we can go from there.
I have a couple things. First off, there is no local law 2, it's local law 4, it's local law 2 of 2001 that you're referring to.
No, this is a totally separate thing, Keith. This is a brand new law. I'm not talking about that one.
I just have some comments from Tracy here. He's concerned about the whole decibel thing and having to be able to meter it. He did a little research, and in order to operate the meter, it has to be the right meter. And you have to be licensed to operate this meter. And you also have to have a written complaint to use this meter.
Did he? Well, go ahead. No, sorry, go ahead.
And those were Tracy's comments. I don't agree with everything you said about our procedure. Our procedure is not we just automatically call the state police. If somebody files a complaint, actually signs their name to it, Tracy goes and investigates. And we've done that on several occasions, just this last month. It's not we just call the state police and say, have at it. We call the state police as a last resort when we can't get people to comply. It's not going to be a perfect world, Eric. You're never going to make every neighbor get along with every neighbor. I can see that maybe 10 o'clock at night is too late, and if you want to make an amendment to our town current law to 9 o'clock, I could support that. I could even support the metering and all that, but I think you need to have some deep discussions with Tracy about this before we go ahead, because he has some real concerns, and since he's the one who's going to have to enforce this, I think maybe you should have a sit down with him and then bring it back to us. But I honestly prefer that you make changes to our existing law than try to write a whole nother law, because what you're looking at pretty much mirrors what we already have with some minor changes.
Well, remember, I proposed a new policy that didn't get passed. So I tried to find a way that we could address the current law in a way that, again, would have procedures for both sides to understand, and that we could use that going forward. That was my first attempt. That didn't pass. I don't know that I can talk to Tracy. I don't know why he's not here tonight, but when he says there's I reached out to these towns and they didn't have anything. I don't know who the authority that says it has to be a licensed meter or the right kind of meter. I'd love to find out where he has that information, because I don't know who the authority behind that is. Ultimately, hold on a second, hold on. Ultimately, the decibels are more of a guideline. I'm not proposing that Tracy spend his day driving around in his car taking decibel readings. It's one of those things where if I live next to Frank and Frank's playing his music loud, and again, it's written in here where we hope the town residents will take care of it themselves. If Frank won't turn it down, and I can go on any app in the world and stand there and go, okay, this is 130 decibels, or something to that effect, then it's obvious. We're not sitting here saying that it's clearly written in the law. We're not sitting here saying that it has to be done. I don't know who gives the authority on. I'll talk to Tracy about that, but none of the towns I spoke to have that or agree with that. But the decibel thing is more of a guideline that folks can follow and understand, as opposed to that people understand what we consider a loud noise as opposed to what reasonable is.
Then you have neighbor against neighbor. You have a neighbor with a cell phone taking decibels, which is not proper. I work at a stone company, so we have to monitor noise. Well aware of noise problems and stuff. So like Keith says, it is monitored, it's done by a professional. The machine is calibrated to take that, and it has to be time-weighted average. So are you saying that as soon as you hit 85 decibels with your neighbor at 100 feet, that constitutes a violation? Because it has to be over a period of time.
No,
so what's that period of time?
Well, that's something we can talk about. What do you think the period of time should be?
you have to establish something, and 100 feet, not 100 yards, 100 feet. I paced off 100 feet. That's 48 paces for me. I don't have a long stride, that's not very far.
Well, we can change that too, if you want to, so if we want to make it 200 feet, we can make that too. fine.
Well, then what's the point?
The point is
We
why
already
we,
have something in place that's being
well,
enforced.
well, listen, to be fair, I reached out to Tracy when when this latest issue happened. I said, Tracy, what's our policy? And Tracy said, I called the state police. Not my words, his words. So that's our policy. Our law, we've read it, we've all read it, it's very vague. I'm just trying to give some specifics to a law that can help people understand it and can help Tracy go to the potential violator and say, hey, Mr. Walliver, here's our law. Look at it, understand it, and it means something, not what we have right now, which is very subjective.
But he did write up a violation, so then the next project reached to the court. He also followed up with the landlord,
He wrote a violation?
correct? That was my
I
understanding.
didn't see a violation.
First off, in order for him to write up a violation, you have to have a legitimate complaint. It's one thing for somebody to get on the phone and say, well, I don't like the way my neighbor's playing their music. It's another to actually sign a complaint. And if he gets a signed complaint, he goes. But a lot of these people don't want to sign a complaint. They don't want their name attached to it. They want Tracy to be the guy that does it for them. And it's easy to do without your name on it, but it's a little more difficult than when you actually sign it and say it was me that complained. And that's part of the problem. Everybody wants to dump on Tracy, say it's Tracy's.
I don't think anybody's straight dumping on Tracy.
The
I
thing
hear-
that bothers me is this, decibels is a very ambiguous situation because temperature has a rise in it. Distance, obviously, and whether or not there's leaves on the trees. When you go to court, you have to be very specific. You can't talk in generalities. And I can't see how you could succeed winning a case against somebody with something so ambiguous as decibels.
Well, again, we're not using decibels to be the speed
Gotta
limit.
use something.
Hold on a second, we're not using it to be the speed limit. If you, in here, I can find it, but the whole point of this is, it's another tool in the toolbox. I mean, the thing that concerns me is, when I lived in Brunswick, we lived about 20 feet from everybody, from our neighbors. We had a very lovely woman who chose to mow her lawn at 9:30 at night. She was different. Marilyn was a lovely woman. That's what she did. It wasn't great when you have a newborn baby to have a lawn going at 10 o'clock at night, but we just deal with it. So it's Marilyn, she's a little different. All right, we'll live. Someday we'll move out to the country. We won't have to worry about our neighbors being 20 feet from us, right? So we don't go to the town and complain. But yet so how many times does someone have a noise complaint that they just sit on and don't say anything about? How many times do we get a noise complaint where they contact the town and they don't ever hear back? How many times do we have someone write a letter? I mean, Dave's a good example, right? One of his neighbors complained that his kids were playing the drums in the middle of the day. I don't think that's a problem, but someone did. They wrote a letter. Dave said, all right, we'll knock it off. I don't think that was a problem. But then when we have people that come to the town board meeting who've gone all through those steps, how many other people stopped along those steps and just gave up? A lot. I mean, is it 10 times? Is it 50 times? It's some. Not everybody has the
I can tell you as a
willingness.
supervisor, it isn't a dozen.
So you
And
mean to tell me
then-
we
and
only
like-
have we only have like a handful of noise complaints in the past few years, Mr.
Yes.
Oh, well, and
I'll
they all
tell you,
came
I
to the
made a
town board?
complaint, and the sheriff's come out looking at me. And the complaint was, I had a plane fly over my house so close, and I noticed it's clearly in here that you want to exclude airplane noise, taxi noise.
You did know that
And
in the
I'm the one
airport.
sitting there, and the plane flew about 200 feet over my house, and now I got 3 cops cars sitting in my yard. This is last May. And now you're excluding takeoffs, taxiing, flight. There's helicopters landing at the airport at 2 o'clock in the morning down there. That's noise.
Well, then you should work with me and we'll put it in there. I mean, at the end of the day, the airport was there, it has been there for a long time, so I can't change that.
All right.
The reality is, I think by the time someone comes to the town board, they've gone through all those levels of town government, I think we lose probably 90% of the people that make complaints.
All right.
So it clearly could be better. So work with me and let's make it better.
All right, here's what I propose. Do a little work on it, if you feel.
Well, I've done a lot of work on it. You want me to talk to Tracy about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
I would also like to know the legality of fining the landlord for the tenant's violations. If I'm the landlord, I don't want to be fined the same rate as my tenant for making the noise.
Right, new issue for me, we'll certainly look at that. In general, the property owner is always responsible for actions on their property, but in this context, for sure. We can look at that and give you a legal opinion.
Okay.
And that comes from other towns who have instituted that, so that's where I got that one.
All right, well, we'll move on to the schedule of fees. You guys have what Tiffany put together. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this tonight, but you have it. I'd like you to review it. I'm not sure whether it's necessary to have a special meeting on it or not, but we should probably have more discussion on our fees. They have been updated in quite a while. And honestly, if we updated our fees, it would probably, yeah, would complement our budget greatly. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it tonight, but if you guys have it, please review it. Mohawk Humane Society, we are not the only town that got this. Every town's got it. I think the only ones that didn't get was the city of Troy. Our animal control officers, seeing if he can get an extension. They didn't leave us much time. 2 months isn't a lot of time. He's looking into other options. I don't like the way Mohawk Humane Society is handling this. I think it went from being a place to rescue dogs and finding homes to them to a different animal altogether. It's more of a club of animal lovers that, and if you ever try to get a dog out of the Humane Society, it's harder to adopt a dog than it is a human at this point. So I just think they're doing a bad job of their managing. I think the reason they're losing so much money is the way they manage it. And I think trying to pull cats in and all the other nonsense that they're trying to do, they're causing their own problems. And quite frankly, I'd like to talk to the other towns about putting our own Humane Society together, get rid of Mohawk altogether because I think they're doing such a bad job. But that's my thoughts on it. We all have it in our packet. There's nothing we can do about it. They don't have to renew the contract next year if they don't want. So I'm doing some work on it and I'm looking at some things. Our dog control officer's looking at some things, and I'll have another report for you at the next month's meeting. But if you have any thoughts on it, then please let me know. I'm disappointed. I think they've done a really crappy job. All right, that brings us to our action items.
Keep repeal local law 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, we have repeal of local law number.
It's actually 2.
4.
Sorry, right?
Yeah.
So my only question was for Andy was, what's the process by which a town board can repeal an existing law?
Is to go through the local law process. So there would be literally a local law prepared to repeal the prior local law.
So that's it. So we go through the process as we learned today, put it in the right form. Then we go to a public hearing and we go to the board for a discussion.
That's right.
So I would like to ask the town board to direct Andy to start that process to repeal the local law 2 of 2021, which dealt with the issue up on Lynn Road. And we can repeal it and then maybe create a new one to take care of the problems in the current existing law.
What are the problems in the current existing law? That law was established to protect the rights of any number of people, way of life that has been there for hundreds of years. So why would you want to repeal it?
My concern is that 5 years, 10 years from now, when none of us are on the town board, that law, as we've seen the mistake that that was made, or that the, I'll say this. Well, the problem with the law is that we could find ourselves in the same position again. So I think it makes more sense to take that one down and put a new one up and take out the section that ultimately got us in trouble, got us sued, so that it doesn't ever happen down the road.
The section that got us sued wasn't the local law that was in error. It was because Mr. Casey decided that it was imperative, like, to have the cease and desist order in there.
Right.
That's how we lost in court for discrimination.
We didn't lose based on the law. We lost on a civil rights suit. This was not the law failed or the law was no good. It was a civil rights violation. Yes, it was.
I don't agree with that. I think
Well,
ultimately,
that's what it was. I was at court for it. I can tell you what it was.
well, I mean, ultimately,
Why don't you take out that section?
what it was the fact that we were, well, I don't want to rehash the point. Listen, we obviously didn't even want to defend our own law. So that's okay. It was a mistake. People make mistakes, no big deal. I'm just saying, let's just correct that mistake so that 10 years from now, another town board doesn't find itself in the same spot.
So we take out the cease and desist clause.
I don't know. I mean, that's why I asked, and I don't know what the
cease and
right,
desist clause doesn't matter anymore because it's already been settled. So that isn't an issue anymore. If that's the only problem you have with the law, well, it has nothing to do with the current law because it's already been settled. We only had one case. It's not like 10 more cases are gonna pop up in the next 10 years, or even one more case of the same nature is gonna pop up because there isn't any. We had one, and we lost on a civil rights violation, not the law was no good.
it's interesting. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But to me, I just seems like something we ought to correct. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm not.
I think if you open this up again, you're going to infuriate 3/4 of the people that live in the mountain unnecessarily. And I'm not in favor at all.
Well, we know the process now, right? The process is to draft a local law, to repeal the law. That would be the process, right? The right way.
That would certainly be a procedural
But-
option. Another one would be if you have parts of that law that you think should be amended, there could be a local law seeking to amend provisions, not repeal in its entirety. That's always within the board's legislative discretion.
So then, I guess ultimately the board will decide. I'm not trying to put the board on the spot. I thought it was a conversation that would be good for everyone.
Sure. And taking it through, let's presume there's one member, irrespective of this discussion, there's one member that would like to advance something, puts together a local law, introduces it. Of course, you take it through the process. There'd be a public hearing notice. You hear from the public. The board could consider, deliberate, and choose not to approve it. That's happened before, right? And that's part of the legislative process. Same thing could happen here.
So in that case, in a straw poll, is there any reason to go forward, or we just finish this discussion tonight here? Obviously, Keith and June don't want to go forward. If no one else wants to go forward with me, we'll be done tonight. We discussed it.
You want to go forward? Okay. All right, that moves us on to a resolution for the speed limit reduction on Weatherwax Road. It's an urging resolution, not a binding resolution. Do I have to read the whole thing?
Probably just the very end.
I would think just the correct.
Now for, be it resolved by the town board of the town of Poston Hill, its regular session duly convened as follows. The town board of the town of Poston Hill urges Rensselaer County to join in request to DOT to conduct all revisit, evaluate of the speed limit on Weatherwax Road from New York State Route 66 to New York State 355, with the recommendations that the speed limit on Weatherwax Road be reduced from its current 45 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. A certified copy of this resolution shall be transmitted to the Rensselaer County and the New York State Department of Transportation. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
So one member will offer a second, will second that.
Do I have a second?
I made a motion.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought he made the
Who's
second.
making the second?
Okay. All in favor?
Oh, I'll make the second. I'm sorry. Okay. I thought you said the second.
All right, so you want to call a roll on this one?
Councilman Butler?
No.
Councilman House?
Yes.
Councilman Van Slyke?
No.
Councilman Oliver?
Yes.
Supervisor Henry?
Yes.
Did I say
Thank you.
something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would ask DJ, if at all possible, and I know it's a town road, that road is used more as a park than it is a road.
Mm.
And if we could have a lines put on that road, because almost once a week, I come to a situation where there's two people walking side by side, pushing a baby carriage, walking their dog. and you gotta get around them.
True, but the lines aren't gonna stop somebody going 70 miles an hour. That's
No.
the problem at hand that we're talking about tonight.
I mean, I see that.
It's
Almost
it really is a
every
through
road.
road to get to the middle school and everything that people travel too fast on. And we've been here before, the residents are tired of the speed. I think it should be lowered.
I somewhat agree with you, but if people are going to use that not as a road, but as a park, that's a problem. And they do.
What do you mean as a park?
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Pardon?
What do you mean as a park?
They walk along it,
But are people
Too
entitled to
wide.
walk up and down the road if they?
yes,
Okay.
too wide, dogs in the hand, pushing a stroller.
Are you aware that the road is a substandard width?
They should be. I wish they were and kind of move over.
No,
Because
no, the roadway is a substandard.
I wish they would realize that and walk accordingly.
So
Yes,
you'd rather us realize that the roadway is substandard and avoid walking on the roadway altogether?
I would ask that you walk single file when a vehicle is coming.
Okay, we, thank you, Harold. Tiffany, next is this update of software. You want to talk about it?
So, our current water billing software is going by the wayside, I guess you could say. The upgrade is going to happen at some point, whether we look at it now or later. Now is a good transition time. The upgraded software will allow people to view their bills online, pay them online. It'll allow us to email bills out instead of having to paper mail bills out. And that's kind of the common practice with a lot of billing software systems. So yes, the price is more than what we're used to paying, but there's really no way around it. There's two quotes. Edmunds GovTech is who we currently use. We're asking the board to approve it to continue using them. We looked at another company. If we went with that other company, one of them, I would say major issues is the back data wouldn't be moved over to the new system. It would kind of, we'd have to download and have to go through a file if we were looking for the back data, where the system will bring over the back data.
Just another comment if I might. About 8, 9 years ago, we looked at some other companies. The system we're talking about is called the VAST system. We've had it for over 12 years. We don't have a choice in this regard. We can't say, I'm going to do maybe look at it next September, October. They're not going to be able to serve us come another 2 months. Stop me if you disagree, but I thought that you should know that. This is something we've got to act on now, either go ahead, if I was voting, I would vote in this case to go ahead, or say, no, let's look at another one more.
So this is a recommendation from Tiffany and Bob. As Bob says, we do have to move on this, have a limited time frame here. What's the feeling of the board? I personally would just like to move forward.
This also won't come out of this year's budget, it'll come out of next year's budget, but approval tonight will get us in the queue with the company for the flip over instead of being at the end of the queue when they make the announcement at the end of this month that our system will no longer be supported.
I think we should go ahead.
Yeah. With Edmunds?
Yeah. All right, does that require a motion? All right, I'll entertain a motion that we pay Edmunds amount of $8,550.
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you, everyone.
And the dollars for that are in the proposed budget for next year.
Our next is Legenbauer Bridge. DJ, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. Back in April, the bridge on Legenbauer Road was yellow flagged during our 2-year DOT bridge inspection that the state does. The transverse tendon that runs through the span of the bridge broke, and that needs to be replaced. So they moved it from a 2-year inspection to a 1-year inspection until that defect is corrected. So we have obtained multiple quotes from different companies to do that bridge repair. to get us back in good standing and make the bridge the way it's rated for, as the plans call it. We've got 10,000 in our bridge line in the highway budget, so we'd need 17.5 from reserves to make the correction this year.
And this company is the company that you're recommending to us, right?
Yeah, WM Keller and Sons would be the one.
Want me to read the whole last part again?
I'd be happy to do it. Keith.
There you go.
Okay. Be it resolved by the town board of the town of Poston, a regular session duly convened as follows. The town board hereby awards a contract to William J. Keller and Sons Construction Corp. Pursuant to its proposal dated October 6, 2022, concerning the Legenbauer Road Bridge repair to the extent of and limited to removal of existing damaged cable and installation of new post-tensioning cable and tension and all other ancillary required actions in connection therewith. According to the Legenbauer Bridge Road Repair Record Plan documents, in the total amount of $27,500, and further hereby authorizes the supervisor to execute any and all documents in furtherance of such award, subject to the following and the required certificates of insurance, including commercial general liability, automobile, workers' compensation, and errors and omissions, naming the town of Poston Hill as additional insured and standards amounts as required by the town.
And just another comment. The amount of $27,500 is not currently in the highway department's budget. We'd have to move some from our general fund over. So just be aware that that will be in the proposal in our budget. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So can you do a roll vote?
Councilman Butler,
Yes.
Councilman House,
Yes.
Councilman Mansell,
Yes.
Councilman Oliver,
Yes.
Supervisor Henry.
Yes.
DJ, back again this year.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
And I'm not sure the past practice, but I think it's good practice for a board when making an award of a contract or purchase of equipment in these amounts to have a separate resolution, just so that can be documented and separately tracked rather than simply having a motion in your minutes. Good record keeping for those types of purchases and contract renewals.
So hopefully we don't get ordered by the state anytime soon again, but that would help. This one here is a pet project of mine that TJ and Tiffany have been working on with me. As I mentioned at our last town board meeting, during these meetings we've had throughout the town, one of the concerns was that we don't have a town park and that we don't have a place for the kids to play basketball. So with the help of DJ, we have gotten Cronin to do the work. He's starting the 22nd to do the excavation work and lay down the stone for a basketball court behind Post Hill School. We have Scotty Polero donating material for the base, and Clementi's donating the asphalt. And it remains the posts themselves and the hoop. My original quotes were anywhere from $1,600 to $1,900 a piece. Tiffany was able to contact an employee, a salesman for this company that actually lives in town, and got it down to $3,000, which is still a lot of money. But I'd like the town board to front that money so that we can order them to 3 weeks out to get them. It's my intention to go to the business association and ask for them to help with some of this money. But I would like the town board to consider spending $3,000 of our COVID relief money to pay for these hoops so that they can be installed when everything else is done.
We also had $1,000 in the park line item and everything that Jim had included in this budget. Maybe we should think about putting that back in also, so that can go towards it if needed.
I think, Jim, that's in the current budget. It's not
It
in there?
didn't, not in the line item. It was last year. It didn't get
Oh,
moved
and then
forward
we
and it
did.
didn't total.
Well, we have $1,000 in our budget for this year,
We can put it in.
but we still need to come up with another $2,000.
You need a motion?
Yes.
Can I just say one something more real quick? I think it's great that we have everybody helping out on this thing. I just wondered if this isn't something that we shouldn't do on a volunteer basis and just come up with this money and not necessarily have the town spend the money.
Well, I'm working on it. I haven't got to that point, but the window to order these is, it's 3-week waiting, and I have all these people lining up to do the work.
Before it gets cold.
I think too, a lot of the feedback that we've heard for the rescue funds was geared towards parks and some kind of recreation, so it would be appropriate if needed, that we could use the ARPA funds towards that.
I'll just be quick, I just think we're playing small ball by putting up, I mean, it's great, it's nice, but it's just, we should be thinking a lot bigger than a basketball court.
I am thinking a lot bigger.
But and like Mr. King said, I just don't know what those things are.
Well, I can tell you that I've had other discussions to expand on the whole park plan. As you all know, we own the baseball fields. The town owns that, and the property combines with the post-kill property in the back, that field. If you go over there and you see where the 2 T-ball fields are, there's electricity, there's water already there. I didn't want to start another project or even come to the board with another project until we had this one finished. But the school has a construction program where they build things like stages and stuff like that. And I've talked to the superintendent about possibly having the school come in and build a stage between the 2 T-ball fields. And that would also help give us a spot for people to have concerts and where it plays for the school or whatever. But if we combine with the school, there's a large tract of property there. We already own the fields. We already have the parking. I know it's not the park that everybody wants, but it already has a playground there. It has everything that Butler Park has. It's right there. Once you have the basketball court and the stage, and it would be relatively cheap compared to purchasing a piece of land and going through the whole process of excavating and building a park. So
your goal here is to have the town front the money and hopefully get donations back to the town to cover some of that cost.
yes,
I think it's a great idea. You need a motion?
yes.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor? All opposed?
I'll oppose it.
Honestly,
Thank you.
hoops, not changing.
Can't do chain hoops anymore. Can't have chain hoops on school property. I know we had chain before, but they're not allowed anymore. I looked into that. They're where it is, people using fingers.
You're afraid of the 3rd graders getting up there?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the 3rd graders will be taking advantage of a 10-foot high hoop. All right, that brings us to the radios. Okay, as DJ stated before, our radio system is going to be shortly obsolete. He's been looking into different companies. This doesn't actually buy the radios today.
We're budgeting for this new system for next year, but we need approval for the lowest bidder to be able to get on the books in December to get the radio install done, and then we'll pay for it in January with 2023's budget. It's the same number that we talked about in the budget meeting last week. It's just the approval to move forward with them, sign the contract basically. Because, yeah, Wells is shutting our system down in February.
All right. Now therefore be resolved by the town board of the town of Poston Hill in its regular session duly convened as follows. The town board of the town of Poston Hill hereby approve the purchase of radio equipment for the town of Poston Highway Department as described above and as set forth in the written proposal submitted by, Going Mobile LLC, proposal number 202000550, dated October 4th, 2022, in the total amount of $8,050 and 56 cents.
56.60.
All right, thank you.
Sorry. Insurance.
That's resolution number 27.
You have to.
You're out of order.
Do we have a,
I'm on the wrong.
I need a second first.
I made a motion.
I need a second.
We're all second his motion.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Councilwoman Butler?
Yes.
Councilman Haas?
Yes.
Councilman Van Slyke?
Yes.
Councilman Oliver?
Yes.
Supervisor Hand?
Yes. This brings us to the Schuhart, PDD Coordinated Environmental Review. I'm looking to our attorney for guidance.
So as the board described earlier, on the Schuhart PDD, it was referred to the planning board. The planning board did discuss this, put together a recommendation to be referred back to the town board. Under your town code, the next step in the review process for a plan development district is the review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So Wayne Bonesteel, the town engineer, has had the opportunity to review the environmental assessment form as submitted.
Yes.
Before I get to further procedure, any questions, any?
No, I find that the part one of the EAF is filled out accurately by the applicant with the exceptions and the answers in part one of the form.
Okay. So under your town code, the next procedure is to commence and complete the seeker review before any public hearing is held on the actual PDD. There are a number of what are called involved agencies on a project like this. We heard earlier that DEC was out today on wetlands issue. That's an example of one involved agency. That's an agency that needs to either permit or approve the project in order for it to proceed. There are a number of involved agencies on this action, and it's certainly recommended that the board conduct what's called a coordinated environmental review. A notice will be sent out to all the involved agencies, and one lead agency will be selected that will be responsible for completing the environmental review. The resolution I prepared is to direct the coordinated environmental review. It does also indicate that the town board does seek to assume lead agency status, since most of the potential impacts are local. That's not unusual, but for a board like this that has a PDD in front of it to assume lead agency. So that is the first step. If this is approved, we'll put together, Wayne and I will review the lead agency coordination notice that gets sent out to all of the involved agencies. There is a period of 30 days under the secret regulations for the agencies to respond. They can either say we have no objection to the board taking lead agency, or they may say we would like to be lead agency. We'll deal with that in due course. If there's a dispute, there's a process to go through that. I wouldn't anticipate on this action. Once that period ends, the board can then declare lead agency. Just to kind of round out the procedure under seeker, and Wayne can fill in if I miss anything, which is what the board then does need to do is review, with the assistance of your review engineer, not only the action, the site plan, the proposal, the information contained in part one of the environmental assessment form, and make a determination of environmental significance. And that will result either in a positive declaration or a negative declaration. If the board concludes, based on a review of the record documents and the environmental assessment form, that there is not the potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact from the action, you'll adopt a negative declaration, and that'll end the seeker process. Then you'll move on to the balance of the PDD review, and that would include the public hearing on the proposal. However, if the board determines, based on the review of that record and the information in part one of the EAF, that there is at least the potential for one significant adverse environmental impact, you'll adopt a positive declaration. What that then requires under the seeker regulations is a full environmental impact statement be prepared. There's a process to go through for that. The board would initially scope the issues, called the scoping process, scope the issues that would need to be investigated in an EIS, and then the applicant would prepare the draft EIS for review. Now, once a draft EIS is deemed complete, then you'd have a hearing just based on seeker, just on the DEIS. And then there's more procedure to finish, including a final EIS and then findings adopted by the board. Once that process would be completed, then you would move forward and conduct your public hearing actually at the PDD. So this is the procedure that the board will be facing. This is the first step, which is direct a coordinated environmental review and indicate that this board seeks to be assume lead agency status.
This is the same thing we did with the water district.
It is the first step in the process, same thing we did with the water district. Why did I miss anything?
Well, yeah, there may be issues, whether minor or significant, that pop up during the seeker review, that the applicant would have to provide supplemental information for review for me and Andy, to make the decision whether or not it has no impact or might have some moderate impact on the environment, but that still has to happen as we go through this review.
All right, well, if the board would indulge me, I think I'll read the title of this one because it actually names the people involved. And then I'll just read the bottom half and then take a vote. Is that right? Resolution directing coordinated environmental review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act regarding the Schuhart Plan Development District, Windrift Meadows Senior Housing. Now, therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Postage Hill in its regular session duly convened as follows, pursuant to seeker and its implementing regulations of 6 New York CCR Part 617. The town of Postage Hill does hereby direct and coordinate of lead agency designation with all involved agencies on the Schuhart PDD application to be completed through the service of a notice of intent to establish lead agency indicating the town of Postage Hill Town Board seeks to be designated as lead agency for this action. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Sue, you want to take a roll call vote?
Councilwoman Butler,
Yes.
Councilman Haas,
Yes.
Councilman Van Slyke,
Yes.
Councilman Oliver,
Yes.
Supervisor Hand.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. I guess that brings us to our reports. I don't really have a report. Town attorney?
Well, aside from routine matters, we did obviously work on the Schuhart PUD with Wayne. Had an opportunity to work with the Highway Department on the resolutions for tonight. And we did work on the Weatherwax Road speed limit issue, and we had an opportunity to coordinate with Mr. Tappan. So
Thanks for your help with that.
Thank you very much.
I gotta go, can I just make a comment?
Sure.
We were talking about possibly building a gazebo in the back of the Postage School. Next to the
Well, it's
basketball
actually town property, but
But it's still the back, it's the back of the school you're talking about, or just?
it's actually right in our ball field park.
When you actually get to the design phase, let me know, we'll donate over to Bridgeport.
Thank you.
And my brother will probably put some scrolls on the end and everything like in the VFW gazebo.
That'd be very nice. Thank you.
One of the benefits of having such great wood products, businesses in town.
Don't forget to mention to your uncle that we're gonna do some striping on the basketball court.
I'll leave that to you.
You're a fellow wrestlers, I'm sure. Town clerk's report?
The month of September 2022, the town clerk took in $20,461.18. Of that amount, $15,514.80 was turned over to the supervisor.
Entertain a motion to accept.
So, okay. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Bob, that brings us to you.
Everything's been going fine.
There you go.
Very busy, working on a lot of new installations, but moving along nicely.
That's a good report.
Thank you, Bob. Tracy's away on vacation. You have his written report. Dog control officer, as I said earlier, we've been in conversations with him about Mohawk Humane Society. That brings us to you, DJ.
Just need a few minutes in executive session for personnel policy stuff.
Okay,
That's it.
that brings us to payment of the bills, and we look to you, Mr. Haas.
I move that we pay the town and highway bills of $42,354.52.
All in favor?
And I move that we pay the water bills of $1,506.35.
All in favor? That concludes our meeting. We have, time for public comments. Anyone else would like to comment?
Yep.
Go ahead.
This is the third town board meeting that Mike and I have been to in regards to the noise issue by our house. And the very reason this came about is received an email from one of the board members this summer who had just heard that last summer we had our house on the market. We were wanting very badly to move out of New York. And of course, the problem that we had this summer, we also had last summer with the tenants of the building, which I affectionately call the Animal House. On one occasion, we received a phone call from our agent to let us know that she was bringing out a prospective buyer. Of course, we have to vacate, as you know, when we're showing house. And unfortunately, at the same time, the occupants of the Animal House were getting ready to set up their drum set and their electric guitar and whatnot. So I went over and I asked them very politely if they could refrain or hold off on their music making until they saw a couple cars leave. To which case I was told that they had the right to get off the property. So there wasn't any point in my pursuing that conversation any further. And we went up the street, and actually we stayed with Ross and Kathy, quarter mile up the road where they could be heard all the way up there. Needless to say, the result of that showing, our real estate agent informed us that the prospective buyer wasn't interested because of the location. I can't say for sure, but we very well might have lost the sale of the house. So we have been damaged, and we're continuing to be damaged by losing our peace and quiet on a regular routine basis for the likes of essentially two tenants there, one who is the ringleader, who's an alcoholic, who obviously, by all accounts, is also into some kind of illicit drugs because of his antics that he goes into. And it's not just restricted to the periodical drum playing out in the front porch, but this past summer, again, this problem is getting increasingly worse every year because the word seems to be getting out that this is a place to go party and drink beer and partake of other substances, I'll put it that way. So that on any given night during the week, there's about 8 or 9 chairs set up in the front porch. Some nights until 10:30. We'd have to listen to basically an open air party going on where every other word is the F word, hooting and hollering, and then ultimately the drummer guy who more times than not gets himself strung out on some kind of a substance, is hollering and hooting and hollering. And I just don't know where to go with this. Now I'll tell you the reason why we have not filed a formal complaint is because these people are the kind that if we were to do that, I would not be a bit surprised that there would be reprisals. In fact, the year before, one morning I came out and I found a drywall screw in the sidewall of the the tire of my vehicle. Now, that drywall screw did not get there. You know, it was sideways. Somebody put it there. Can't prove it. And if we were to file a formal complaint, which is what I should do, but heaven forbid something happened along those lines, because it's just going to elevate a situation. And frankly, you know, unfortunately, this is the reason why things happen, because they're allowed to get out of control. Because, quite frankly, what I've heard in these three town board meetings is the town board doesn't want to do anything about addressing the current noise ordinance. Nothing. But the problem is, you're not affected by it. And I said a couple weeks ago that if this problem.
If you say that again, I'm gonna take issue with it, because I heard that last time, and that's nonsense. Okay, that's nonsense. And you expect this town board to be a policing agency that's not. You have a police agency, contact them.
We did.
Did you file a complaint with the state police, ever?
They've been called.
Okay, but did you file a complaint? I mean, you expect the town board to do the things that you don't wanna do. It's not our job to be the police agency for the town of Postage Hill. We're not the police agency. All right, you have a bad neighbor, and if he's doing things you're claiming he's doing, you have mechanisms to follow. But you keep coming to this town board saying it's our fault, we're lazy, and we don't want to deal with your problems. And if it was in my neighborhood, well, guess what? I lived on a dairy farm for a number of years. It was pretty loud. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have bad neighbors, but stop pointing the finger up here, because I'm starting to get annoyed by it.
You're getting annoyed. I'm the one's getting annoyed. Listen, a couple of years ago, we called the sheriff's department. Ross has a scanner. You know what he heard on a scanner from the sheriff's department dispatcher? Tell him, Ross.
Couple of girl boys just strumming away or something.
They don't want nothing to do with it. Filing a complaint with the police department is a total waste of time.
So what do you want the town to do? File a complaint for you?
I don't know.
I'll speak up on that now. Ross Wager, Packer Road. We've called the sheriff's department, we've called the state police, I've contacted you folks. And every time the sheriff and the state police says there's no town ordinance against the noise. That's just what they tell us. That's when I went to you folks. And we found out that it's in black and white, there is an ordinance. And nobody seems to want to follow it. It's right in black and white. If it's a radio, stereo, any type of music who's annoying another neighbor, stuff can be done about it, something can be done about it. But nobody wants to say to us, go ahead and sign a complaint. You keep beating around the bush about it.
Okay. I hate to put you on the spot, Mr. Wade, but what's the process?
So I hear a couple different things going on, and I think you pointed out earlier, Keith. Obviously, no matter what the sound ordinance is, as far as times, whatever, needs to be enforced, right? State police doesn't do anything according to Eric. However, been there many times, done it for 20 years. Take a complaint on it. If you want to sign a complaint, right, it will be enforced one way or the other. As far as a noise ordinance complaint, as far as the town is concerned, the town would have to enforce, if there is something that's actually enforceable, right? Whether, you know, we take a complaint, go to the town, maybe a summons of some sort can be issued to them. Is that going to stop them? 9 times out of 10, no. You're going to end up with retaliation or otherwise. So, hundreds of calls that I've responded to, I've done the same thing. Talk to the complainant. Here's your choices. You can make a complaint, or you can't, or you don't have to. You make a complaint, they may retaliate. You don't make a complaint, we go over and talk to them. Now, us going over and talk to them, does that mean they're going to stop? No, not necessarily. Sometimes it works, other times it don't. So no matter what the noise ordinance that the state police does enforce, as you said, is, it's really up to the choice of the public what they want to do, how far they want to take it, and if they want to be retaliated against or not, take that chance. So sit here and point fingers at each other is kind of pointless. because it's in the hands of the public what they want to do.
I'm pointing fingers at the town. That's our job. We have a code. We have to enforce our own codes.
Well,
We are
not
not, hold on, we're not,
You're
hold
saying
on, hold on,
state
Mr.
police
Wade,
didn't
hold on.
do
Let me,
anything.
let me finish the speaking. Yeah, let's finish. We have our own codes. I'm not asking the state police to do it. I'm not asking the county sheriff to do it. The town has codes. We have a code enforcement officer. We can write appearance tickets. That's all we can do, but we could at least do that. We don't do that. So Ross is 100% right. We don't even enforce our own codes. That's all.
So what is
Our
the,
code requires a complaint.
I don't see, I'd
Our
like to
code
see.
requires someone to sign a complaint, say, I have a complaint.
I
And
would
then
like
Tracy
to-
can go to court from there. But until somebody actually files a complaint, he can go up there all he wants and knock on the door and say, look, your neighbor's complaining. And they'll say, go grab salt.
Keith, I will admit I'm wrong in public manner if you can show me where it says in the code. I don't see it, but maybe I'm missing it. I will admit I'm wrong. I don't see it in the code, that we have to have a written complaint.
whether it's written in a code or not,
Well, that's what we just said, it has to be written. Go ahead.
whether it's written in code or not, if you're gonna bring it to court, you need something to stand up.
Sure, that's what you have.
And that's
to
what
do.
So if
Tracy's
you don't have a
saying.
written complaint,
Tracy,
you're
he had
going- you have nothing.
write a court summons, but he has to have a written complaint. You can't just go to court with nothing.
He
I'll
can,
sign anything
hold on a
you
second.
want
He
me to
can,
sign.
he
I'll
can
sign
collect
anything you want.
evidence.
Then my
But you
suggestion is
gotta-
to
you
call
gotta-
Tracy on Monday
You gotta
and
at
come
least
down and
tell
file
us-
a complaint.
You
Did
gotta
the
at
reason
least
for
tell
it.
us that we have the right to do that. And every time this is brought up, it's beat around the bush.
Well, my suggestion is to call Tracy and file a written complaint.
And the other thing,
If I
when we
may.
call the state police and the sheriff's department, why don't you have the courtesy to come up and speak to us and make the complaint?
Well, again, don't point fingers at me because I'm not the one to call, correct? So,
Okay, and your
whether it's the-
dispatcher
whether
is
it's the-
another one.
Whether it's the agency or whatever's going on at the time, I can't talk or vouch for that. Okay, whether it's, you call and then a traffic accident or suicide or something else, sometimes things do outweigh the other. I don't know the circumstances, but as state police protocol, if a complaint comes in, we are always to go and interview the complainant.
You never have yet. Never have. Now you give us a
Well,
phone
then
call.
that's.
And then your dispatcher.
All right, okay, guys,
That's a
now
phone
we're
call.
doing exactly what we're.
Then your dispatcher turns
All right,
around and says, one neighbor's in cahoots with the other. So,
They're talking to each other. All right, thank you, everyone.
yeah, nothing's done. So nothing got done on that, right? What a surprise.
And helicopters don't hover over your house for 4 hours making a noise.
Maybe six
that's
times in an
disturbing.
hour. Maybe 6 times in
Fly
an
all
hour.
night long over my house.
Over and around and around.
They don't over my house, but I
I
can hear that.
know, I live near
can
the
hear that-
airport.
Can you hear that group that's playing in your house?
No.
Okay.
I'd rather have that group than a helicopter.
Oh, you.
I'll entertain a motion
Well,
to
then,
adjourn.
you know, you don't have to, I'll call you the next time they're out there playing. so you
They'll give
can
me
come
yours,
up
I'll
and
call you
listen.
with a helicopter.
I heard helicopters.
I can do it afterwards.
Go ahead.
Pertaining to the basketball hoops, if a donation wants to be, or can be made, in the next week, is that
Anytime.
addressed it to you or Tiffany or?
Yeah, just Tiffany.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's taking.
Comment.
Yes.
Okay, question. All right, we have the Weather Wax Road speed situation. What about, there was some talk about Main Avenue and
We already have a resolution for that tonight.
You don't need a resolution to have it done on a state road, and that request was put in already.
Okay.
State road, you can just request that with DOT, you don't have to go through the legality of that.
Okay, so Main Avenue and
Yeah, that was,
that's already been put in?
yeah, I did that myself, but I don't know, there's 6 month turnaround time. I mean, that was in July, it could be 2023 before they come out and do it, but, yeah, we spoke with the state about that already.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Executive session.
So I can do that, that's no.
First, make a motion. I'll make a motion. for executive session. For the purpose of discussing personnel.
Okay, I guess what was.
Explain it.
Yes, James, contractor.
He had do with his name.
I don't.